Thank you, friends. In just a moment, we are going to begin the service for Mrs. Carolee A. Taxer of blessed memory. Just a gentle reminder, if anybody has a cell phone, if we could please take a moment to turn it on silent. Officiating our service today is Rabbi Nachman Levine.
Start off with a few chapters of Tehillim. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai Roy Leachzor, Binastesha Yarbitzeni, Al Mei Menuchas Yinahaleni, Nashi Yishovev, Yamcheni B'malek Tzedek, L'man Shemo. Gam ki elech b'geil talmoves lo irara ki ata imadi, shiftecha mishantecha hema yinachamuni. Taruch lefanai shulchan neged tzorarai, Yishanta b'shen roshi kosi revaya. Achtov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yimei chayoi, v'shafti b'veis Adonai l'orach yamim. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He revives my spirit. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and kindness shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Eshes chayil miyimtza, v'rochog mipnin michra, botach ba leiv bala v'shala lo yechzor, kamalasu tov v'lo ra kol yimei chayeha, kappa porsa liani, v'yodeha shilcha la'evyon, noda b'shorim bala v'shifta im ziknei yoretz, oiz v'hodja levusha v'atischak liyom acharon, v'yo pascha v'chachma v'soras chesed al lishona, Soifia alichas beisa v'lechem atzlus lo sochel, Kamu vaneh v'yashruha, bala v'yahalala, Rabbas banas asuchoyil, yata lisal kulona. A woman of courage who can find. She's more precious than fine gems. She reaches out to those in need and extends her hand to the poor. She's clothed in strength and dignity, and she faces the future cheerfully. She speaks with wisdom. The law of kindness is on her lips. Her children rise up and bless her. They sing her praises. Many daughters have done valiantly, but you excel them all. Pirkei Avos tells us, Ethics of Our Fathers tells us, Kol sheruach habrios nochahem mena, hamokim nochahem mena. Excuse me. It means anyone who is pleasing to his fellow man is pleasing to God. We have all come here today to give final kavod to Cyril Bas Yisrael Feivel and Mrs. Lee Taxer. Lee was certainly pleasing to people. Every time I saw her, she had a smile and a good word to say, and sometimes a little bit loud, but a good word to say. Lee was an only child to her parents, and she was devoted to them. Yes, she was a devoted daughter to her parents, and later a devoted wife to Marvin, to whom she was married for 64 years, and her children, Valerie, Scott, and Lance. Lee taught them well, because when she needed them, they showed devotion and kibbud aim to the very end with care and with love. Lee was an akeres abayis, the mainstay of the family. She was proud of her Yiddishkeit and cherished her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. She was all about family and was the happiest when the family got together for events and holidays. Lee had a sweet tooth, but not just for herself. There was not a time when she came to visit us without bringing an alligator cake. You know what that is? That's wrapped in dough and covered with chocolate. And I don't know about Valerie, but she passed on this sweet tooth to Lance. And most of all, she was a proud Jew, a mensch, and a mother, a Jewish mother. Back in the 40s and 50s, there was a famous Yiddish song called the Yiddish Mama, which describes the accolades of a Jewish mother. Our sages tell us that he who has a mother is blessed by God. Indeed, it is so. However, only one who is deprived from a mother can really appreciate what it means to have a mother. To have a mother means you have somebody you can complain to, you can cry to without shame. A mother is a confidant, a friend, a guide, and a teacher. A mother is a nurse and a doctor. A mother inspires you and holds out promises for our future. A mother gives unconditional love, compassion, and understanding. A mother builds up not only our body, but also our minds and ego. She is indeed God's partner in creation. She created us. No wonder we are told to honor our father and our mother. To honor one's mother is to honor God because she too has a share not only in creating us, but also in shaping our life and standing by us when we needed her most. And just as there are no limits to honoring God, there are no limits to honoring our mother for all she does for us. Can we ever honor her enough? So when a mother passes away, we must ask ourselves certain questions. Did we treat her well? Did we take her for granted? Did we appreciate her? Did we notice her pride in us? Did we notice all the work she did for us? And if not, we should ask Mechila. Yes, each of us knows what is meant by a mother and what a mother means to us. All of life is a gift. Eov cried out, Hashem nasan v'Hashem lakach, Yishem Hashem mevorach. God has given and God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. As Jews, we are all acquainted with grief. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us. Yet the centuries have taught us that a good name, a Shem Tov, endures beyond the grave, and there is strength and faith. And Lee passed away, b'Shem Tov, with a good name. Our own life is a gift to ourselves. We are a gift to our parents, and our children are a gift to us. But all gifts eventually must be returned at some point, and only Hashem determines how long we may keep our gifts. Our job is to make the most of the gift that Hashem gave us. It's not ours to keep. Therefore, we have to remember the moments we had and cherish these memories we shared with our loved ones and our friends. And our hearts go out to all the children, to Valerie and Bob and the children and grandchildren, to Tema and Lance, children and grandchildren. May your soul be bound in the matrix of eternal life, and her name be a blessing to her whole family and to all of us.
Purpose of a eulogy is to give honor and merits to the person who passed away, as well as for us to take lessons from, so that we could emulate their ways. I often ask myself, what was my mother's zchiyos to have a richas yomim? She died just short of her 91st birthday. Her parents died very young. Her genes were not looking good for her to have a long life, but she did. Why? Why did she have a long life? Of course, my father-in-law alluded to it before. Person who honors their parents is meritorious to have a long life. But I want to dig a little bit deeper into that so that we could understand what keep it up. The name is basically whatever my mother told whatever my grandmother told my mother, that was it. If my grandmother said to my mother, jump high, jump, and my mother would say, how high? When my grandmother told my mother, Marvin, I like him, you have to go out with him again. And my mother's like, I don't like this guy, I don't like him. It didn't matter. My mother went out with him again. Of course, the rest is history. That was my father, Marvin. When my grandmother, very poor, when she told my mother, Lee, you're working now, it'd be useful for you to help to pay for the rent for our apartment. My mother did not think that was a chutzpah wrong. She immediately gave her money. But my mother didn't know that my grandmother planned on giving it back to her as a wedding present because she had no money herself. As Yaakov Avinu said in the Parsha, a couple Parshas back, that if you take my last son Binyamin, I'll be bereft of Rachel, and I'll be bereft of Yosef. And as my mother passes on, the matriarch of the family, I feel bereft of my father, my grandparents, and my brother. My grandparents, or as said, my mother's in-laws would come every single Shabbos, and my mother never complained. We would go to the Bronx, from Queens to the Bronx, an hour each way, traffic. We went to the Bronx to visit my grandparents. Again, my mother's in-laws, and sometimes the in-laws get a bad rap, and it could be my mother didn't like the arrangement of going every single week to the Bronx, or my grandparents coming to us for the week. But my mother, I never ever heard her complain about it. She never said a word in front of me about, oh gosh, the in-laws are coming again. I never heard that. And something that we call learn from. My mother, I never heard a word of lashon hara about my in-laws coming again. It just never happened. So that was also, I think, part of her kibbud av v'eim that she had that a lot of us don't. Gemara relates in Brachos, Kishachala Rebbe Eliezer Nicholas Tamidav Levakro. When the great sage Rabbi Eliezer was passing his Talmidim asked him as they were visiting him, Rebbe, teach us the ways of living in this world so that we can qualify for Om Haba. And the first thing that Rabbi Eliezer says is his hero b'chvod chaverechem. Be scrupulous and careful about the kavod of your friends. My mother was incredible at this midah. She had an incredible ability to make people happy, to befriend people, to say hello to people. She always said hello first. No one said hello to her first. She always said hello first. Another thing that Rabbi Eliezer said, Kishatem ispalim du lefnei omdim. When you daven to God, know who you're praying to. The God's in front of you. Understand that He's in front of you. My mother had zero Jewish education. She came sadly from a tekufa, from a period of time that girls don't need a Jewish education. It's very sad. My mother could not read a word of Hebrew. My mother could say brachos that she memorized, but was basically in the Hebrew language is mostly illiterate. Nebuch. However, my mother had God in her, would pray to God in her lovely way. She would ask God for all sorts of things all the time. So she davened to God. She understood God. She never had never had a taina on God. I'll get back to that. But the point is that the third thing that Rabbi Eliezer said to his talmidim was, that you should place your children near the feet of sages. My mother really couldn't relate to that because she had no real strong Jewish upbringing. But despite that, she still had God was part of her. And even though you would say God threw a lot of tsaros her way, she never complained, never had a taina. She told me, you don't ask questions about God. What He does is just. She lost her parents at a young age. She lost her son at a young age. She lost her parents, of course, at a very young age. I don't know how she recovered from that, but she did. But I never, ever heard her complain. She didn't complain about my father having Alzheimer's for 10 years. Ratzon Hashem, God's wish. All she cared about was that he was taking care of, like a Karasabayas that she was. The rabbis tell us, Kina kavataiba motzes adam in ha'olam. My mother wasn't jealous of anyone. People had bigger diamonds than her, bigger cars than her. Relatives had bigger houses for her. I never heard her complain about it. Kavod, not interested. She stood in the background. Taiva, my mother loved her donuts, but she would never spend $10 for a donut. Forget it. My mother had taivas, but there's no ain't of herself. When it comes to taivas, you can never the things that you want. It's impossible to have everything you want. My mother wasn't interested. As was Lura before, my mother was a Karasabayas. She didn't grow up with Shabbos. She loved making Shabbos too. She kashed the house for us, for me specifically. She never wasn't the taker, but as I was reflecting, when I was in Hebrew school, making the bracha on the menorah, the nachas ruach, the excitement that she had for me, lighting the candle for the menorah when I was 8 years old, was her face was glowing. She loved Jewish rituals, loved Jewish practices, as she understood it. But my mother loved to cook, but was not a baker. That's the worst word. That's the one thing her mother was a phenomenal baker, not my mom. She would go to the bakery and buy everything. My mother was fiercely independent, and she took care of my father. The caretakers came from 9 to 5, and from the rest of the evening, my mother took care of it. I don't know how she did it, but she did it. She made it work. Whatever the insurance company gave, my mother filled in the blanks. My mother would tell me that she can't wait she would love to travel and see the world, but she has to be with Dad. She basically epitome of an Eishes Chayil. I mean, my father was working. She ran the house. Everyone knew their role. My father was working. My mother took care of the house. My father did diapers in the middle of the night because my father had a whole copy of an account. My mother reasoned that he's working with people's incomes. He's working with people's parnassi. They have to be sharp. So she took care of the night shift always. I don't think my father ever did a diaper at night, maybe during the day, but never at night. In fact, I'm not sure my father ever did a diaper. That's the truth. Where's my sister? I don't think he ever did a diaper, just for the record. Put it once, yeah. Okay. So I have to talk about me and what I have to say to my mom. During my journey of becoming frum, quite frankly, I drove my mother crazy half the time, like giving her about 2 hours to prepare for Pesach. When I finally finished kashering the kitchen, that would be one example of many. Or me being inflexible, or me telling her, I can't eat this because, maybe there was some sort of, you did something inappropriate cooking on Shabbos, I can't eat it. My mother never had tainas. All the times I stiffed her, I told her I was coming home Friday night, and I went to a Rebbe instead. And she never got upset with me. She said, Lance going to a rabbi, I know what he's doing, I know what he's doing, but she had a suitor waiting for me, and I blew her off. It was wrong, but I did it all the time. She understood that I wanted to be with my rabbis from shul, from school, whatever it was. The one nachas I gave her, she said, "Where's Lance?" Okay, don't worry about him. He's in the yeshiva. Can't say that about my sister. My sister, that was a different story. We'll get back to that in a second. My mother had a green chair in her living room, and she was thank God, a night owl. But until all the kids were back in the home, she was waiting for everyone to coming home to say, "How was your day? What are you doing? Where you been? What were you doing?" You couldn't escape it. My mother was there reading the paper till 1 o'clock in the morning, waiting for all her chicklets to come home. My mother was there to make sure everyone was safe and fine. And the fact is sometimes her kids weren't necessarily always doing the best thing that they should have been doing. In closing, I have to thank my sister for always giving my mom the proper cover, whether it was the right clothing, the right makeup. Even when my mother was losing it she also had Alzheimer's towards the end. My sister was always making sure that she looked beautiful, nails done, toenails done, and didn't know that was a thing. But toenails done, and my mother was dressed properly. And of course, all the caregivers over the years, Mom, we tried really hard. Make sure you were taken care of with all the caregivers. We did the best we could. I apologize when we fell short. I apologize. It wasn't done intentional. We ask Michaela, me, Tema, and everyone else in the family. In closing, it says in the pasuk, "Vayichal Yaakov Tzavo," says, "Banav Yosef Raglav Al Mitavik Yosef El Amav." That when Yaakov, Jacob, our father, died, he commanded his kids. He pulled his legs in together. He expired, and he came back to his people. The rabbis want to know, why does he use lashon vay expired? Why does it say vayamas and he died? I mean, they said hespedim for Yaakov. He was embalmed, so clearly he died. So there's many answers for this, but the answer that resonated with me was that children carry on the legacy of their parents. If the children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren follow on the legacy of their great-grandparents, then they didn't die. They're still alive. And that's a charge for us. Try to follow along her ways, to love her Yiddishkeit, to never be embarrassed about her, love your family. And if we do that, then it'll be a legacy for her.
I'm hoping to make you guys laugh. It's my goal, but you have lotion in it. And Mima would want. Good afternoon, and thank you to everyone who is here both virtually and in person to celebrate the life of my Mima. For those of you who don't know me, I am Mima's Peninola, her first grandchild and the one who named her. There have been so many incredible memories, which I have to keep me comfort at this difficult time. But I want to share the 10 things that truly made my Mima special. 1, there was not one milestone in which my Mima was not present. From every award, graduation, and holiday, she was there. She never missed an opportunity to celebrate with and for all of her grandchildren. 2, you always knew you were kissed by Mima, for there would be a hot pink stain which graced her cheek for at least half the evening. You could not get that off. 3, Mima loved to shop. She was my favorite shopping buddy, and for years we would meet at the same entrance of the Vernon Hills JCPenney and hit the mall. Coincidentally, and for any Sodics, please shut your ears, this is also the same store where she took me shopping for my first training bra and embarrassed me to no end. Penina, what about this one? I'm not even kidding. From her wardrobe to her smile, my Mima was cheerful. She loved life, she loved to laugh and sing. She loved to show her individuality with every outfit she wore. And it was typically like hot pink or like turquoise. She would hate this. Like black is not her thing. 4, my most cherished memories will always be sitting under the tree at the Raleigh Hotel with Mima, talking about life as the Catskill Mountains of New York loomed in the distance. Mima knew when to talk, and often you couldn't get a word in edgewise, but she also knew how to listen. 5, as a child, Mima grew up in poverty, but my Mima was generous. If she saw something that she knew that you would love, she would buy it. It didn't have to be a birthday or holiday, she would just give it to you. She loved to give, and if you needed the shirt off her back, she would give that. 6, Mima believed in the power of family. Growing up, I remember the entire extended family crowding around the long table set up at her house in Fargo. It would start in the dining room and extend all the way to the front living room. And as a child, there was nothing that her meatballs and her microwaved eggs could not fix. I remember her clapping and cheering when the Cousins Club would present each holiday-themed show. 7, this loving woman could hold a grudge. I know what you're probably thinking, where I'm going with this, but if someone scorned her children or grandchildren, she would not be silent about it. She was fierce in her convictions and even fiercer in her love. 8. Growing up, Mima was my closest advocate, confidant, and friend. Once I was able to drive, I knew I could always just show up at her house and be welcomed with open arms, a cookie, and whatever ice cream she had stashed in the freezer for just this moment. 9. Mima would always pick up the phone, but she didn't believe in paying for call waiting. No. So you were forced to call back multiple times just to get through, just to say hi. And it was typically beep, beep, this user is not available at this time. 10. Lastly, I will remember Mima as the one who reopened her home to my mother and I when we had nothing. She raised me as her own for 3 years. And when it came time for us to move forward, she was there to support us every step of the way. More importantly, that love never stopped. Mima, I will love you every day of my life. And I will remember every sacrifice you made to create this beautiful family. Give Poppy, Uncle Scott, and your parents a pink lipstick kiss from me. Thank you.
I just wanted to say a few words from my sister and I about the woman that was always ready to share Walker Brothers apple pancake, raid Kohl's for anything in the Alfredena collection, and intrigue anyone she spoke to with her New York accent. Our Mima lived a long, beautiful life. She was full of stories about dancing in Cuba and gondolas in Venice, and how our Poppy courted her all the way from the Bronx while she was living in Brooklyn. She was vivacious and could talk about her kids and grandkids for hours. And she was honest, especially when she didn't like the color you were wearing. It's just not your color. We'll miss being able to call you every day, taking you on coffee dates. You're the best Mima we could have imagined. Thank you for always being there for us. And we are grateful that you found peace and that your laugh will live forever in our hearts. I love you a bushel and a peck and a hug around the neck, and we're pussycat dolls forever.
As family dynamics go, everyone has their own roles. Mine was being the baby of the family, which in turn made me have the responsibility of being the cutest and the most adorable, which I think I held to a T. Part of that is also being the youngest is also having to be a special relationship with Mima. Mima was born on January 10th, and I was born a little over a week later on January 18th. So Mima would always tell me that you're my special present. And being a special present, you know, you always have to be there for her. You know, Mima gave us memories. I'm sure she gave everyone memories. She helped me with my fear of clowns by taking us to the circus. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention her other half, Poppy, and their legendary car rides. Baruch Hashem, we're here today, you know, to actually ride to talk about her, because those were definitely an experience. Mima, even when she was older and we went to Ken's for dinner and she brought a burger buddy, she wouldn't have the pickle. Too much sodium. She always got the pickle. It was always something to look forward to. Who's gonna get Mima's pickle? It's not a big deal, but something that will always stay with you because it's who Mima was. She gave. She knew I liked Legos, but at a time when you get older, you gotta go more than that. So she got me the USS Arizona battleship to build, and it's been amazing. And I've had it on my desk every day when I'm home and I see it. I remind myself of Mima and Poppy. has always been just always nice, a reminder to see her. Every time I would call her, I would be, hi, hello, who is this? It's David. David! Next thing you know, she's ears wide open, listening to everything I could possibly say. You know, I told her I missed the bus. And then what did you do? It's not that interesting, but she made me feel like it was interesting. She really cared and listened to everything I had to say, no matter what. It was always when I called and when we spoke, it was always she had full attention on her day and our day. She always made me feel good about that. You know, Mima lived a happy life. You know, if you ask her, Mima, what was it like living in New York? She would just tell you all day, you know, oh, New York, it's the buses, and I went there and I shopped there. And it's just, you know, she lived up. And you talked about the Hawaii trip, and she can go on and just, you could tell everything she did, she lived with such simple and such happiness. She was really proud. She did it to the fullest. That's what you could take from it, is that everything she did it right. No, everyone who gets up here can give memories and say, you know, their special moment, and we could speak all night just saying it. So I guess I just want to say, Mima, thank you so much for the memories, and we love you.
Want to thank everyone for coming from near and far and for beautiful speeches that everyone spoke. And my mother would be very happy right now because she loved a party. She loved to be celebrated. She would show up in a nice bright color with hot pink lipstick that my daughter Rachel got for her, which she found out how much MAC lipstick was, and she was like, "Are you kidding me? She spent so much money." Every time I would come, she'd say, "I need my MAC lipstick," and she'd go, and I put on her MAC lipstick. So last night I was laying in bed, I couldn't sleep, and I thought to myself, what's my mom doing right now? Well, she's going up there and she's changing heaven. She's redoing everything. She doesn't like what my father's wearing. She's very upset with it. Marvin, nothing matches. You look like you're from the 70s. What's the matter with you? She would be not liking the menu. She would have definitely changed the menu and have it foods that were very Hamish for comfort. She would have lots of cookies and a full freezer of every ice cream that they made. My mother was the warmest, kindest, most loving mother and grandmother and great-grandmother. She was so proud of all her children. It was her happy place was when we were all together in the house, when things were crazy and there was food flying around and babies and chaos. She loved that. She loved the chaos. She loved having everyone together. Anytime when she started to get ill, she would love for me to sing her Avinu Malkeinu. And I'm like, Mom, this is not when you're supposed to do it. She's like, God will understand. I'm like, Mom, I don't sing good. She says, I love your voice. This was my mother. She would, if you felt bad about yourself, when she was done talking with you, you felt good about yourself. She taught me to face the world with a smile and to go forth honoring my family as much as I could. Her heart was bigger than anyone I knew. And she was always there for her children. I know the first thing she would say to my dad is, David's an accountant, Marvin. He got the top of the top. He's the top. He's the top of everything. And she would start talking about all the Kinderlach and what the Kinderlach were doing. And she would be so proud of my brother, Hartam Echachim, and his beautiful family. And my sister-in-law, Audrey, and my brother, Scott, she would be proud of the children that they raised, that even though they went through so much, that they stood up on their feet and they were counted. And she would be very proud of that. And she would know that they're going places in the world, that every single one of her children was going to go places, and that every single one of her grandchildren would, because she said, when you give love, love finds you and you grow a higher madrega. You get bigger and bigger from that love, and you're able to be more successful because of that. She didn't say it in those words, but that was pretty much how it went down in our home. Just love, and when you can't do more, give more love. And that was my mom. My mom will really be missed. She was my best friend my whole life. And there was a time when I was a teenager that I was not so nice to her. And I'm sorry, Mom. And because of that, Lance is from. So, you're welcome, my little brother. There's always that middle child, okay? Anyway, I thank you all for coming today. I appreciate, and so many of you I know from the neighborhood and on West Rogers Park, and I know a lot of friends from New York are tuning in, and my daughter in Italy is tuning in, and all of our family in Arkansas, they're tuning in. I appreciate you all, and there's so much love in this room, which is the thing that my mother would have been the most proud of. Thank you.
If everyone would please rise for the Kale Moline. El Moli Rachamim, Shoichin Bamronim, Hamse Menucha Nachon Al Kamfe Ashchina, the Malois Gedoshim V'Taharim Kizar Vakir Basirim, as Nishmas, Tirol Bas Yisrael Feivel, Shahol Choli Lama, Bavor Shanachnu Mispalin Baras Skars Nishmasa, Mushpachto not in its dog about Skars Nishmasa, Began Aiden to Yemenuchasa, Lochein Balarachim Yasti Rao, Beseher Kanafal, the Elamim, Yisra B'Sorachayim Es Nishmasa, Adenoihu Nachalosa, the Sanuach V'Shalom Mishkava, V'Naimar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Cyril Bas Yisrael Feivel, Mrs. Lee Taxer, who has entered eternity. God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of the everlasting life. God is her inheritance, and may she rest in peace. And we all say, Amen.
Friends, this concludes our service here at the chapel. The tournament will take place immediately at the family plot at Shalom Memorial Park, 1700 West Rand Road. Upon return from the cemetery, the family will be sitting Shiva at the Taxer residence, 3000 West Fargo. Minyan times are going to be 4:15 Mincha Marav, Shachar 6:45 a.m., and on Friday, Mincha will be at 1:30. That information is available on the folder received on the way in. If you did not receive one, they're available on the way out. And for those who are watching on the live stream, that information is on the funeral website. Memorial contributions of Mrs. Taxer's memory can be made to Hebrew Theological College. That information is in the same locations. For those who wish to join the family procession to the cemetery, one will be forming just outside in our parking lot. If you're planning on joining the procession, please make sure you obtain an orange funeral safety sticker, which can be placed on the inside windshield portion of your vehicle. For additional measure of safety, we're going to place magnetic flags on the rooftop portions of your vehicles. On procession, please make sure you have your bright lights and your hazard lights on, on at all times. Please drive as closely to the car in front of you as safety permits. Please use your horn liberally, especially while going through the intersections, as we want to avoid any cars from entering the procession. Please avoid talking on any cellular devices while en route to the cemetery. The following individuals have been asked to serve as pallbearers. When I call your names, if you could please rise and stand next to Mrs. Taxer's casket. David, Bensi, Joey, Frank, Kyle, and Ronald. This time, I'm going to ask everyone to please rise as we escort the family in the casket from the chapel.